Don't be shy. You're just a high school dropout who's going to teach me German, right? Derek mockingly tossed the documents my way. Got it. Despite feeling resentful, I obediently started to go through the documents. But immediately, I was taken aback by the unbelievable content I read. We absolutely cannot agree to this contract. It could jeopardize our company's existence. Huh? I hastily translated and skimmed the contract, summarizing its details. Derek, my would-be boss, and other executives present were visibly shocked. My name is John. I started working at this company nearly 20 years ago, beginning as a part-time apprentice. After spending a decade at an overseas branch, I was recently called back to the head office. Feeling nostalgic, I entered the bustling New York headquarters. My father, known for his whimsical and carefree nature, disappeared as soon as he learned of my mother's pregnancy. Raised in a single-parent home, I witnessed my mother's tremendous struggles. She worked at cafe and supermarket during the day and tirelessly did piecework late into the night. When I was in my third year of middle school, my mom encouraged me to go to high school. But I knew my mom was working day and night, so I wanted to help her financially rather than going to high school. Understanding her health was failing due to overwork, I felt no hesitation in starting work right after middle school. I took up a part-time job at a factory producing computer components. It offered enough work to keep me busy, and they also provided meals and a transportation allowance. For me, it was the perfect job. Perhaps because a kid suddenly joined them, everyone at the factory took great care of me. They taught me skills to improve quality, efficient work methods, and even the best way to wash work clothes. Some even gave me vegetables to take home to my mother. I was well liked by everyone, and thanks to their detailed guidance, I enjoyed my work. President Thompson must have noticed my rapid development and offered me a full-time position, a stroke of great fortune. When I received a bonus for my well-received parts, I joyfully bought a gift for my mother. However, 4 years later, my mother, who had always been frail, passed away, leaving me alone. During my period of grief and low spirits, President Thompson approached me with an opportunity. How about working overseas? We'll support you with your German. Seeing me struggle in my hometown, he offered me this chance. The company had established an overseas branch that wasn't performing well. Feeling lost without my mother, I accepted the offer to work abroad. Adapting to work in a foreign country was genuinely challenging. Not only the language barrier, but also the cultural differences created many confusions. Initially, there were issues like not gathering on time and subpar work quality. I often clashed with the local workers. However, by exchanging opinions, we gradually began to understand each other. When I shared my background, some even wept for the mother they never met. I was invited to family feasts and even received support from local influencers. In this way, I gradually built up a track record at the branch office. After a decade, I became proficient in German and took on external negotiations. Then, I received orders to return home. For 10 years, I worked tirelessly, trying to forget about my mother. Standing in front of the headquarters after a decade, I was astonished. While I was working hard overseas, the headquarters had constructed a new building, quite an impressive structure. It was a glass-clad skyscraper, with security guards stationed around the clock. Welcome back, you've done well overseas. We've arranged a temporary position for you, so please do your best there. President Thompson greeted me with a warm smile. My position at the company was still up in the air. It seemed they were unsure about where to best utilize me. After the greetings, President Thompson quickly escorted me to the sales department. At first glance, the sales team appeared youthful and full of energy. I'm John, and I'll be working with you from today. "Nice to meet you," I introduced myself. Everyone responded to my greeting with smiles. I thought I'd be able to adjust smoothly at the headquarters. However, my optimistic outlook was soon shattered by a man. The next day, I greeted my new boss, the department manager named Derek. "Good morning." There was no reply to my greeting. Even though he had been friendly during my introduction the day before, he looked displeased. "Good morning," I said again, thinking he might not have heard me. "Quiet, I heard you." I was suddenly confronted with harsh, offensive language. As I stood there in shock, a mocking voice followed, further belittling me. "You're a high school dropout, and you're older than me. Yes. You went overseas or something, but I guess it was just because you're too dumb and got demoted, right?" I had been looked down upon for being a dropout before, but I didn't expect it here. As I stood speechless, Derek continued. "Guarding a useless dropout like you is just my bad luck," he said condescendingly, looking me over and then returning to his desk. During lunch, I learned from my colleagues that Derek was considered an elite due to his high educational background. He would flatter those he deemed superior and look down on those he saw as beneath him. He was not well liked because he flaunted his status. But he has a good facade, so complaining about him will only lead to resentment. It seems like the people at work have somewhat resigned themselves to the situation. Apparently, Derek started out humble but became arrogant once he had subordinates. I tried to begin my actual work to assess Derek, but he didn't explain anything to me. "You can handle this work as a high school dropout. Just do some menial tasks." Saying so, they wouldn't even let me properly handle the documents. "No, I was assigned here by President Thompson, so please let me see the contracts or something," I insisted. "Like I said, there's no job for a useless high school dropout here." "Oh wait," he said smugly. Derek called a nearby part-time cleaning staff member and told me, from now on, clean with her. What? Both the part-time worker and I were shocked. "Document work is too good for an incompetent dropout," he scoffed. Stunned, I exchanged glances with the part-time staff. Derek placed a broom and cloth in front of me, smirking. "Hurry up, or does a dropout not even know how to clean?" Frustration welled up inside me, but I didn't want to cause trouble so soon after returning. Additionally, my colleagues around me kept glancing over. They were probably afraid of becoming the next target of Derek's wrath. Holding back my emotions, I picked up the broom and rag and began cleaning methodically. "Okay, it seems we are done today," the part-time staff member said, offering me coffee in the break room. "Thank you, that Derek. He's really a terrible person," I said. She shared that she too was looked down upon just for being in the cleaning staff. Her name was Emily Thompson. Being close in age and sharing the common plight of being burdened with Derek's unreasonable demands, we bonded and became close. She taught me some cleaning tips, and in return, I shared with her some sewing tricks I had learned from helping my mother with her home-based work. Meanwhile, Derek's arrogant behavior only worsened. He relegated me to menial tasks like making tea and photocopying, typical of a new employee's chores. Even when I asked to see documents, he'd refuse to show them, and only after repeated requests, he'd reluctantly toss them my way. My colleagues would give me sympathetic looks but seemed afraid of becoming the target of his anger. I understood their feelings, so I didn't hold any grudges against them. They would later apologize and sneakily show me the documents, making it easier for me to work without drawing Derek's attention. One day, I spotted a troubling company on the list of potential contract candidates. It was an overseas company known for non-payment and failing to deliver goods. I remembered listing it as a risky business while I was at the branch office. If we can secure a contract with any of these, it could significantly grow our company, and my achievement will be huge, Derek excitedly said. Indeed, if we could implement the management AI system developed by this company, we wouldn't need to keep paying a fortune to the outsourced management firm. Driven by a desire for success, Derek was visibly excited. But I had a bad feeling about that company. Despite my issues with Derek, I couldn't let the company engage in something dangerous. I think it's better to research that company a bit more. There are some questionable businesses overseas, and it's better to be cautious. I suggested, handing him a manual with the cautionary criteria we used at the branch. However, he knocked the document from my hand, scattering it across the floor. "What are you doing?" I exclaimed. "Ha, as if a document written by a high school dropout could be worth anything. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong," he scoffed. It was clear talking to him was futile. I wondered if people like Derek were common in this company. I was in the cafeteria, sighing heavily. Then Emily came over. By that time, we had become confidants in complaining. "Did Derek give you a hard time again?" "It's not your fault," she said. "Yeah, he didn't even glance at the manual I made, just knocked it over," I replied. "That's terrible. What was the manual about?" she asked. The manual contained confidential company information. So I couldn't just tell Emily, an external contractor. When I explained this, I expected her to be disappointed, but instead, she smiled warmly. "You're really honest, John. With your diligence, you'll definitely see brighter days," she reassured me. Her smile lifted my spirits. I was encouraged by Emily's gesture of giving me homemade cookies as a reward for my hard work. I mustered the courage to go and consult with Derek. I was curious about his negotiation and contract styles and asked to accompany him, even if only as an errand boy. You want to shine my shoes?" he mocked. "Yes, I'll do it," I agreed. "Fine, but remember, someone like you shouldn't even be part of this," he said disdainfully. It was humiliating, but I got the chance to participate in the negotiation. The other party was scheduled to come to our office for a meeting at 2 p.m., as Derek had mentioned. With this faint hope, I opened the door to the meeting room in the afternoon. But when I arrived, the place was completely deserted. Rushing to the office, I learned that the meeting had already ended in the morning. Returning to my desk, I saw Derek smirking. "Hey, I told you the meeting was at 11 a.m., didn't I? What's this mess now?" he accused. "What do you mean? Wasn't it supposed to be at 2 p.m.? I asked, confused. "I clearly said 11 a.m. It's really troublesome how a high school dropout can't even keep track of time," he taunted. Suddenly, I realized I had been set up by Derek. "Derek, what kind of person are you? Do you have a problem with me? It's not your place to speak up, you low achiever." This is how I lost my chance to be a part of the contract meetings. Feeling down, I secretly opened the cookies Emily had given me. Then something unbelievable happened. "Hey, don't you dare think you can take a break, you incompetent." Derek snatched the cookies from me and crushed them under his shoe, turning them into dust. "How could you do that? Those were Emily's cookies. Huh, that cleaning lady, huh, perfect match for a bottom dweller like you." Was I destined to be treated this way just because I didn't finish high school? I could tolerate it for myself, but I couldn't stand Emily being insulted too. Enough is enough. I've got my own thoughts on this matter. Derek seemed taken aback for a moment at my assertive tone, but quickly turned furious. "What? You're defying me. You keep calling me incompetent, but what do you really know about me? You never even tried to see my abilities. Just looking down on me must be so easy for you." This seemed to hit a nerve, as Derek slammed a thick document in front of me. "Then you can read this, right? Teach me some German, Mr. Middle School Dropout." "Understood." I picked up the document and started reading. It appeared to be a contract used in today's transaction. This will be a huge advancement for me if it gets finalized. Ignoring the boasting Derek in the background, I continued reading the contract and discovered something alarming. This could ruin the company. Stunned, I looked up to find Derek snatching the contract from me. Of course, a middle school dropout can understand German, right? Start from the alphabet again. His usual demeaning tone didn't matter to me now. What are you talking about? If we agree to this contract, our company is in danger, I yelled at Derek, forgetting all formalities. And I rushed to the president's office. President Thompson was shocked by my sudden entrance but turned pale as he read the contract and listened to my explanation. He immediately summoned Derek. President Thompson, I apologize. This idiot just barged in causing trouble. What on earth is this all about? President Thompson gathered other executives, and in the midst of them, I raised some concerning points. Is this the contract from today's deal? Yes. Derek's voice was drowned out by President Thompson's shout. Are you trying to bankrupt this company? Derek, look here. There's no delivery date specified. The contract shockingly had no delivery date mentioned and stipulated that we would pay before starting the work. I translated the contract briefly while reading. The executives, including President Thompson, turned ghostly pale. We have a payment deadline mentioned, but there's no deadline for when the other party will deliver. That's the problem. Well, they said they were short on funds to build the system, so once we transfer the money, they'll deliver it soon enough. Derek tried to deny my claims, but he was flustered. He probably realized something was off but didn't want to agree with me. Derek, growing desperate, tried to argue, but I calmly continued. No, there's a real possibility that they could just take our money and disappear. What are you saying? I've seen the company's system with my own eyes. What if that was just a sample to gain our trust? However, Derek turned red-faced with anger and snapped at me, but every time he did, his words got tangled up. The contract was lacking in credibility, almost like a mere verbal agreement. If any trouble arose, it would just lead to a futile argument of he said, she said. But more troubling was a particular clause written in it. The cost of updates for any deficiencies will be borne by us as needed, it read. In small, hard-to-read German print. There was no mention of an upper limit to the amount, and agreeing to such terms could potentially lead to enormous financial demands. This shows you hadn't read the contract properly. A little attention would have made these issues immediately apparent. No, there's no way such a major company would deceive us. The contractor, a major player, had been receiving bad press lately, especially in the overseas locations where I had been posted. Unlike in America, where trust is paramount, dealing with overseas companies often means our laws don't apply. As I conveyed these concerns, Derek's face turned red, then pale, in quick succession. I just accepted the contract they offered. There was no problem when we talked. But the actual document says otherwise, doesn't it? Once a contract is stamped, it's difficult to overturn. Even taking legal action against an overseas company might not get us anywhere. That's why, in our branches, we don't do lump sum payments up front but rather employ milestone-based or split payment methods as a precaution. Contracts are crucial. The other party is counting on us falling into their trap. Derek, obviously upset at being constantly challenged by me, was biting his lip and trembling, but I didn't have time for him. President Thompson, let's talk with the company. Since we haven't officially contracted yet, there should be a way to handle this. Yes, please do. I'm sorry to have you clean up this mess. I, along with Derek and other executives, contacted the counterpart. Thinking the contract was a done deal, they arrived excitedly. However, upon seeing not only Derek but other staff lined up, they looked confused. The negotiations with the executives were tough, as the other party kept dodging responsibility. In the midst of the heated German discussions, Derek merely shrank back. Anyway, we can't agree to these terms. At the very least, we need to change the payment terms. But Derek agreed to it. He didn't read the contract. That's our fault, but these terms are unacceptable. The other party was probably holding out, thinking they were about to receive a massive sum. After some grumbling, they finally agreed to annul the contract. We've heard various rumors about your company. If it were to cost us millions, we'd have to reconsider. My firm stance seemed to work. In the end, they left the company with words of disdain for the Americans. I was relieved. It was a situation that could have been irreversible. Dealing with overseas companies is tricky because they can escape anywhere. Back at the office, President Thompson thanked me and reprimanded Derek. It's the other party's fault for being malicious. Any other employee would have done the same. Why am I the only one being blamed? Derek rambled excuses, but President Thompson, who disliked such talk, scolded him further. Regardless of the reason, the responsibility lay with Derek. He had endangered the company by not checking the contract. Well, if you can't even read a contract properly, I can't trust you with important tasks. President Thompson effectively sidelined Derek, who was fuming. Why, I've contributed to this company. It's his fault for interfering. Both I and President Thompson were at a loss for words at his absurd reasoning. Do you even understand why I hired John in the first place? I heard he worked overseas, but he's a high school dropout, right? I gave work to such a person, so I don't deserve to be disrupted by him. Then, President Thompson began to scold Derek. Derek, enough already. John is a talented individual who turned our overseas branch around in 10 years. Are you judging him based on his educational background? That's a lie, just to get him into the company. How could a high school dropout be competent? Despite being reprimanded so severely, Derek still couldn't admit his faults. I opened my mouth, feeling exasperated. I may be a high school dropout, but I have extensive experience dealing with foreign companies due to my 10 years at the overseas branch. I was asked to accompany you this time, as we're considering deals with foreign companies at the headquarters too. Derek, looking at me as if seeing something unbelievable, trembled and stuttered in denial. A company that employs a dropout like this is the problem. Dropouts should just grovel at the bottom. Derek himself seemed to have lost track of what he was saying. His styled hair disheveled as he ranted incoherently. Clearly, he was extremely bothered by my achievements in the company. Even if he had understood from the beginning, the outcome would likely have been the same. I approached Derek calmly and spoke evenly. Derek, do you realize how much trouble you've caused the company with this incident? At my words, Derek flinched, but then he snapped back, his brows furrowed in anger. Shut up. You're nothing but an incompetent fool. Enough. You're the one who almost caused damage to this company. As I raised my voice, Derek bit his lip. President Thompson strode over and addressed Derek directly. True, you have a high education, but that doesn't give you the right to act superior here. Be aware of your unacceptable behavior as a professional. But it's the same for him. He's not behaving according to professional manners either, Derek retorted, trying to shift the blame to me for being late to the meeting. I can't believe I'm considered inferior to someone who can't even keep time. Then show us the email correspondence with the other party. The real issue was that Derek had lied to me about the meeting time, leading to my absence. The time I had been told was 1400 hours, but the actual time was 11 o'clock. If we could see the email dialogues with the other party, it would be immediately clear. Reluctantly, Derek showed the emails after President Thompson's stern command, and sure enough. Indeed, the emails exchanged between Derek and the client showed the meeting time was set for 11 o'clock. This confirmed that Derek had lied to me. It's not true. I did tell John 11 o'clock, but he didn't show up. Derek's desperate excuses fell on deaf ears. I was speechless at his absurdity. It's not just that. Derek hasn't been giving John any work, rather making him do cleaning and tea serving whenever possible. Then, as if to add insult to injury, another person entered the scene. It was Emily, the cleaning lady. Emily, what are you doing here? What? A mere cleaner trying to meddle. Though she was a cleaner, Emily was dressed in a crisp suit, unlike her usual work attire. Thank you for your hard work, Emily. It's fine, Dad. To everyone's surprise, Emily was President Thompson's daughter. It never occurred to anyone that they were related, given the commonality of their last name. President Thompson had a policy of not showing favoritism to family. So Emily had to start as a cleaner, observing the company's inner workings. This fact was known to only a few executives, and her identity as the president's daughter was kept under wraps. Emily, having witnessed the animosity between me and Derek, began to recount everything in detail. It's not fair. That's just sneaky. Unfair. If you had behaved properly, there would have been no problem, and you even crushed my cookies. Derek, who had demeaned Emily as just a lowly cleaner, turned deathly pale. I was almost impressed at how ashen a human face could turn. John, despite facing tough challenges, never attempted to leak confidential information of the company. He's a trustworthy person, someone said. You don't seem to have the right mindset for someone in a leadership position. You're relieved of your duties as a department head, declared President Thompson. No one dared to counter such a decisive statement from President Thompson. Derek himself collapsed to his knees, utterly dejected. A week later, I was appointed as the head of the sales department, responsible for negotiations with foreign companies. My former colleagues, once oppressed by Derek, were now working more energetically. Although Derek wasn't fired, he ended up working under me. His arrogance was gone, but his dissatisfaction was palpable. He mumbled complaints under his breath and lagged behind in his work. What are you doing, Derek? Nothing. If you have time to surf the web, you should be working on improving your German proficiency, I suggested. I had introduced a German learning program and business communication skills training in the company. Realizing the lack of practical German skills in our headquarters, I saw this as necessary. Indeed, I started attending negotiations with overseas companies, but whenever we dealt with savvy foreign businessmen, we tended to be underestimated. Perhaps this was partly because Americans tend to be less assertive. I shared negotiation tips with my team, and their skills improved rapidly, leading to successful contracts. My manual, once discarded by Derek, was now being used by new employees. After Emily's recommendation, President Thompson had read and approved it. Our business performance improved, especially with the overseas branches. The foreign company that had almost caused a crisis for us was now isolated, having been exposed by our proactive information sharing with other businesses. They were reportedly on the verge of bankruptcy. I found great satisfaction in this job where hard work was properly recognized. However, Derek alone refused to study and remained sullen. No matter what I advised, he wouldn't listen. Why do I have to be told such things? He kept exuding a negative aura, incessantly voicing his dissatisfaction. This attitude made it impossible to entrust him with any significant tasks. Assigning menial tasks to Derek out of spite was not mature, yet there was no element in him to uplift either. Such days eventually came to an end. He disliked taking orders from me. Employees who used to work under him were rapidly climbing the career ladder. It seemed that witnessing this reality was too much for his pride to endure. I quit. I won't stay in a company where a high school dropout is celebrated, he shouted, slamming his resignation letter in front of me. I didn't try to stop him. Instead, I accepted his resignation. Later, I heard that Derek tried to join our rival companies but was unsuccessful. His high educational qualifications weren't enough to compensate for his lack of German skills and arrogant attitude during interviews. The industry buzzed with rumors about him, reflecting his notoriety. Had he been humble and eager to learn, his high education would have been a great asset. However, his re-employment prospects seemed bleak. Meanwhile, Emily and I were dating, with President Thompson's approval. She officially joined a company and was doing well in the accounting department. Despite being the president's daughter, she worked diligently without any arrogance. "You supported me, and that's why I could work hard. Thank you," I said to her. "No, you were just being honest and sincere. It's your abilities that got you recognized," she replied. What started as a dinner to thank her for her support gradually grew into a relationship. We confessed our feelings to each other, and now we're discussing when to talk to President Thompson about marriage. Both of us enjoy household chores, so living together will likely go smoothly. After my mother's passing, I had some lonely days. Now, I am hopeful about starting a new family with Emily. "Remember how our roles reversed," said my former classmate, standing before me. Back in middle school, she was the picture of youth and health, but now, her former self was nowhere to be seen. She smiled weakly, her figure emaciated. Why? She was so kind to me. What happened to her that led to this state? I invited her to a cafe to find out what had happened to her since we graduated from middle school. What she shared was a past so heart-rending that even as a listener, I found myself on the verge of tears. "My name is Jason. Just a regular male student." I wish I could say that, but it's not that simple. My family is just my mom. We're a single-parent household. My dad didn't die. He left us for another woman. I barely remember his face, so it must have been a long time ago. Before I knew it, life without a dad became the norm. Since he left, my mom has been raising me on her own. She never complained and loved me more than anything, working every day. I wanted to repay her effort, so no matter how tough it got, I tried not to be a burden. But the harsh reality is that effort isn't always enough. If only it was just my dad who disappeared. But he took all our savings and bank bucks with him. Probably to divert as much attention as possible to himself, likely for his mistress. Because of his selfish actions, we were really strapped for cash. Not just tight on money like other families. We lived in a dirt-cheap apartment, usually having just one meal a day. It's not that we had nothing to eat, but we couldn't always have 3 full meals. This was when I was in middle school. My school didn't provide school meals. Lunch was always packed. But my mom worked from dawn till dusk and was too exhausted to even take a bath before falling asleep. There was no way she had time to make my lunch. Sure, she might have if I asked, but I couldn't bring myself to ask that of her, working hard for my sake. But going without lunch during my growing years was hell. So, I tried making lunch myself when she wasn't around. Minutes later, what sat on my lunchbox was as black as the darkest night. I thought it might suck me in if I touched it. Turns out, I had zero talent for cooking. My mom wasn't particularly fond of cooking but could make decent meals. So, I guess the one to blame is still my dad. I always brought a slice of bread with strawberry jam on it. Everyone else spread out lunches made by their parents or grandparents, chatting and enjoying their break. But I didn't belong there. Not because I was ostracized, but because their lunches were too dazzling. What everyone else had in their hands seemed unattainable for me. Watching them with envy, I felt incredibly small nibbling on bread. I couldn't stay in the classroom. Thinking so, I declined my friend's invitations and sought a place where I could be alone. My only companion was my bread. I had two options, the rooftop or behind the gym. Unfortunately, the rooftop was locked, so that was out of the question. It seems like hanging out on the rooftop during lunch is only a thing in TV drama series. So, I decided to eat behind the gym. I could faintly hear the voices of students enjoying their break on the nearby playground, but no one ever came behind the gym. There, I could savor my solitude, unseen by anyone. Until that day. I was late for lunch that day because of committee work. But my lunch was just a slice of bread, so it didn't take long to eat. I hurried to my usual spot behind the gym. There was someone already there. It was a first. The first time I saw someone else here during lunch break. And it was a familiar female student. Her name was Sarah. A girl from my class. She was the daughter of the president of the Kensington Group. In other words, super rich. But she wasn't snobby or arrogant. She was just a normal, kind girl to everyone. We weren't close, just exchanged greetings. There was Sarah, squatting in front of a drain behind the gym, doing something. What is she doing here? I wondered and moved to where I could see her hands. She was holding a lunchbox. She had it tilted open. It looked like it would fall, and just as I thought that, it happened. What a waste, I blurted out without thinking. Sarah flinched at my voice. She turned quickly and hid her lunch behind her. She must have been surprised. Probably didn't realize I was watching from behind. As she stumbled over her words, I immediately approached her. I'm terribly sorry for startling you, but are you not going to eat that lunch? She was the daughter of a company president. So I spoke to her in the most dignified language I knew. I hoped, oh how I hoped. If you're not going to eat it, may I have it, please? I was famished from having gym class right before lunch. My stomach felt like it was stuck to my back. A slice of bread was too harsh for a growing middle school boy. Her lunch looked lavish even from a distance, and the quantity seemed too much for a girl's lunch. If she was going to throw it away, I'd be grateful for even a half bite. Sarah was momentarily stunned by my eagerness. Sure, you can have it. Maybe it was because of my refined language, but she agreed. Really? May I truly have it? I couldn't believe my ears and asked again. Yeah, really. She said and handed it to me. That's when I lost consciousness. When I came to, the lunchbox was empty, and the aroma of a tangy sauce lingered in my mouth. After finishing the meal, I thanked her. You don't need to thank me. I didn't make it. Sarah said. Did you forget your lunch today? She peered into my face. No, actually I have bread, but that's all I have. Saying that, I took out clumsily slice of bread. Just bread with strawberry jam, that's all I have. Her eyes widened with surprise as she asked. That's not much for a boy, right? Are you on a diet? Would someone on a diet devour someone else's lunch like a beast? I had never told anyone before, but I explained how my father disappeared, and how my mother, working tirelessly, didn't have time to make lunch. Sarah listened silently until the end. Then she spoke. But Jason, you're amazing. Making your lunch yourself. It even looks tasty. She complimented me. It might have been the first time someone other than my mother praised me, and I felt a sense of pride. As a thank you for sharing my story, Sarah began to talk about her own family. In summary, her stepmother wasn't her biological mother. Her real mother had passed away, and her current mother was her father's second wife. The stepmother was nice to Sarah in front of her father, but harassed her when he wasn't around. Even the lunchbox was part of that harassment. Despite knowing Sarah's small appetite, she packed it with too much food, including things Sarah disliked. If Sarah left anything, her stepmother would say, "How can you leave it when I worked so hard to make this?" and would become hysterical. That's why she was trying to throw away the contents. I see. No wonder the quantity was so much. To my starving self, it was a feast, but for her, it was an overwhelming amount. "So, you haven't eaten lunch yet today?" She nodded silently to my question. Embarrassed, I offered her my bread. "Here, please have it. It's wrapped in plastic, so I didn't touch it directly." She took the bread from my hand and smiled. "Thank you," she said, enjoying the bread. After that day, we started exchanging lunches. Our meeting place was behind the gym. We shared stories and complaints while eating. Though we were in the same classroom, we hadn't talked much before, but we found we had a lot in common. After eating, I'd take a short nap, while Sarah drew in her sketchbook. She was in the art club and amazingly good at drawing. The sound of her pencil on a paper was soothing, and I enjoyed those moments. Life became smoother for me from there. I was able to go to a nearby public high school with a decent academic standing, and my mom cried tears of joy when I got accepted. Sarah ended up attending a boarding school for young ladies, located a bit far from where I was. She wanted to get away from her mother as soon as possible, and I remember her being incredibly excited the day she got accepted, her drawings more aggressive than usual. Then came our last lunch together. The thought of not being able to exchange lunches with her anymore felt a bit sad. On her last day, Sarah was still drawing in her sketchbook. Looking at her profile, I considered confessing my fleeting feelings, but wanting to keep this youthful memory to myself, I suppressed my tender emotions and etched her image into my mind. It wasn't long after I started high school. My mother remarried. My stepfather, in his first marriage, had been caring for his disabled parents and hadn't had the chance to meet someone until now. He wasn't exactly handsome, but he was sincere and kind, a good match for my mother. With a stable income from his job, my mother quit her exhausting work and found a full-time job with less burden. My stepfather maintained a comfortable distance with me, so we quickly developed a relationship where I could call him Dad. Thanks to his support, I smoothly progressed in my studies and got into a renowned university. I landed a job at a major corporation, leading a life far richer than anything I could have imagined as a child. A few years into my job, I was leading busy yet fulfilling days, but due to a transfer within the company, I had to move. While I was excited about starting a new life in a place somewhat distant from my parents' home, I wasn't without anxiety about living in an unfamiliar area. Once I had settled into my new home, I went out to get groceries. There was a charming, small shopping district nearby where I usually did my shopping. Even after a few years of working, cooking remained a challenge for me. I had practiced enough to make spaghetti, but my specialty was still macaroni and cheese. My mother had tried to teach me, but I was utterly hopeless. It's okay not to force yourself to practice. There are plenty of fast food restaurants. Thus, I was consoled. At the end of the shopping street, I discovered a small hamburger shop. My mother had said fast food restaurant meals were fine, but I never really liked them. I was afraid that relying solely on fast food restaurant meals at my age might be bad for my health. This small hamburger shop, though modest, was clean and had delicious-looking hamburgers on display. They seemed homemade. Yes, homemade meals are the best. Perhaps because I hadn't had much experience with homemade meals in the past, I quickly developed a fondness for those made by human hands, rather than those mass-produced in factories. The fact that the shop was run by an elderly lady was a bonus point. The atmosphere of an established store made the hamburgers look even more appetizing. Looking at the hamburgers on display, I saw a variety of options. There were ham hamburgers, meat and vegetable hamburgers, bacon hamburgers, and more. All looked delicious and were priced affordably. Even a student could afford to buy two. I picked up a hamburger. That's when I felt a sense of déjà vu, not with the hamburgers, but with the picture on the wrapping paper. A subtle landscape painted casually on the wrapper. The wrapping paper was casually adorned with a delicate landscape painting. It was beautiful. It felt familiar, as if I had seen it somewhere before, but perhaps I was mistaken. I took the daily special hamburgers to the register. "Did you make these?" In response to my question, the elderly lady replied, No, I can't stand for long because of my bad legs, so I just minds the chop, but these are made by a beautiful lady, so they are really delicious." With a smile, she packed the hamburgers into a bag for me. Back home, the lunch tasted somehow nostalgic, like something I had eaten before. Since then, I became a regular at that small hamburger shop in the shopping district. Sometimes, there was someone other than the elderly lady at the counter, apparently her husband. "I wondered why my wife dressed up lately. It's because of you, young man," he'd say with a hearty laugh while selling the hamburgers. Besides these two, I never saw anyone else at the hamburger shop. I wondered where the beautiful lady the elderly lady mentioned was. One day, as usual, I went to the hamburger shop, only to find a blind man shouting in front of the shop. "Refund my money. The lunch was terrible." The man was shouting furiously. The person apologizing to the man was neither the usual elderly lady nor her husband. It was a slender woman I had never seen before. Behind her, the husband was saying, "Bad. Maybe there's something wrong with your taste buds, not our lunch." He was arguing back just as fiercely. "Quiet down, will you?" the elderly lady conned her husband. Indeed, it seemed like the husband's competitive nature was escalating the situation. I pulled out my cell phone and began speaking loudly. "Yes, that's right. At the exit of the shopping district, there's a man causing a big scene here." That's what I said. Of course, I wasn't really connected to anyone. Hearing my voice, the blond man quickly left the front of the hamburger shop. "Thank you, dear. This foolish husband of mine just had to say something, causing trouble for poor Sarah." The elderly lady nudged her husband. "It's the fault of that young pike for criticizing Sarah's cooking," he grumbled, heading back inside. I was honestly stunned. The fact that both of them referred to this slim woman as Sarah sent a shock through me. Sarah, that was the name of a girl from high school I was close to. The woman, who had just been shouted at, turned to me, surprised, and then said with a hint of sadness, "Jason, is that you?" she asked hesitantly, almost as if praying. Her expression seemed to convey a wish that I wasn't who she thought I was. "Yeah." I could only nod in response. "Do you remember me? I'm sorry for looking like this. It's like our roles have reversed." She smiled weakly. Seeing her smile, the image of Sarah from our school days overlapped. Though much thinner now, her face still bore traces of the old Sarah. "I remember you, but why are you here? This is quite far from our hometown." Sarah said it would be a long story. "Today's been a lot, so I'm closing the shop early. You can go home now, Sarah." The elderly lady, having watched us, told her while waving her hand. She handed me a few hamburgers. They were oddly cold. After that, Sarah and I sat down at a nearby cafe to talk. What she shared was heartbreakingly unbelievable. Right after she started high school, her stepmother and father had a son. With the birth of a son, the presidency of the Kensington Group naturally shifted to Sarah's younger brother. As a result, Sarah's position in a Kensington family became considerably diminished, with some even deeming her as no longer useful. I was furious, but the story continued. After graduating high school, Sarah was forced into arranged marriages to strengthen the family's business. Her chosen spouse was a man 10 years her senior, the son of a business associate. Although he wasn't her type, she married him, thinking it was for the family's sake. However, her husband neglected her, spending every night out with his mistress. Don't think our son is at fault for partying. You're the problem for failing to keep his heart. Sarah lived in a daily cycle of such demeaning comments. Finally, Sarah's husband, after having a child with his mistress, forced Sarah out of their home. Trying to return to her parents' home, Sarah found they wouldn't accept her back. Betrayed by her husband and abandoned by her family, she was left utterly depleted, both physically and emotionally. It was the couple who ran the hamburger shop who took her in. They gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere else to go, and they even let me work here. They are really kind people, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Back then, she was an enviable, sparkling figure, admired by everyone. Sarah was loved by all, treating everyone equally regardless of gender. I was appalled to learn that such a person had her educational opportunities taken away due to outdated values and had her life crushed by her husband and family. I'm really left with nothing. I feel completely empty. I wanted to do something for her. After all, I still hadn't repaid the kindness I received from Sarah behind the gymnasium. Hey, Sarah, I've got something I want to discuss with you. I had a proposal for her. The major company I joined was a design firm founded by my stepfather. I was in charge of the media content department there. True, my joining the company was initially through my stepfather's connections. However, I found my fit in the design industry and consistently delivered results, so no one ever mentioned my connections anymore. I had even made some good friends there. He would technically be my subordinate in terms of position, but we joined a company at the same time, so he's essentially a peer. Among them, I was particularly close with Kevin. Kevin was particularly good at delegating work and had a knack for knowing when to ease off. We were currently looking for an illustrator who could create background images for a project. Kevin usually excelled in finding talented illustrators, but this time, we were having trouble. We have illustrators, but finding one with a soft touch for background images, that's the issue. Can't you do something about it? I asked Kevin not just for any background artist, but for a creator with a gentle, warm touch. No compromises. After a serious sigh, he responded, all right, I'll bring you an amazing illustrator, one that'll impress even you. Too bad, Kevin. This time, I've found an excellent illustrator before you did. Yes, my proposal to Sarah was for her to work as an illustrator with us. Sure enough, she was the one who had drawn the pictures on the hamburgers wrappers. Her illustrations were impressive enough to be an immediate asset to our company. How about working as an illustrator from home? Sarah quickly shook her head. My drawings are nothing special, just a hobby. I took out several of the hamburgers wrappers I had saved. Every time I bought hamburgers, I carefully folded and preserved its wrapper. These are your drawings, right? I don't think the elderly couple could have drawn these. It's a waste to have such talent and not use it. The prints are just homemade, right? We'd really like you to join us. I begged her. I learned that she could also draw on a tablet. That made her even more desirable for our company. Still, she was hesitant. How about trying it out? If you don't like it, you can quit anytime. We'll definitely pay you. Finally, she nodded in agreement. I could almost picture Kevin's frustrated face from afar. The next day, I brought Kevin to the hamburger shop. I can stand that you found an illustrator before me. It's truly regrettable," he declared, eager to see the talented artist for himself. Standing in front of the hamburger shop, the elderly lady greeted us. "Oh, you brought a friend today, eh?" she said, handing me several pieces of paper. She got really enthusiastic, it seems, she added. The papers she handed me had wrappers with softly rendered, warm illustrations. As expected, they were excellent. Kevin peered over. What is this?" he exclaimed, practically flipping over. "Well, these are beautiful. Hand-drawn, real-ish. Humanity's evolution is amazing," he blurted out at breakneck speed. This delicate touch, just what Jason was looking for, and there he goes, tripping over his words. Leaving a flustered Kevin behind, I looked toward the back of the shop and saw Sarah peeking out, trying to hide. I begged her. I was eager to make a formal request right away. Sarah rushed out from the back, flustered. "I'll take the job. Just please stop begging me like that," she said, playfully punching me. I was relieved that Sarah's involvement meant the project might succeed and that our connection wouldn't fade away. About a year into Sarah's contract, she quickly became a popular creator. "How did you find her? You must have used up all your luck for the rest of your life," Kevin would say enviously, almost every day, but now I even found his jealousy comforting. I was proud of having discovered Sarah's talent as a creator. While continuing her part-time job at the hamburger shop, she was actively improving her skills and even planning her own exhibition. Apparently, Sarah's ex-husband started trying to get in touch with her, despite her smoothly sailing life. Ironically, it turned out the child he had with his mistress wasn't his. Serves him right. After mistreating Sarah and driving her away, he was reportedly cut off from transactions with the Kensington Group. This was due to Sarah's father being furious over the excessively cold treatment she received. Consequently, he lost credibility in his industry, and his business rapidly deteriorated. The ex-husband, now thinking that reconciling with Sarah might mend ties with the Kensington family, had recently been stalking her. When Sarah consulted me about her ex, I switched to remote work. Additionally, I started working from a corner of the hamburger shop. As expected, her ex-husband showed up there. During a meeting, I heard arguing downstairs. "Come back, I'll give you a better life than this lousy hamburger shop." That must be the ex-husband's vile voice. "Stop it, let go." Sarah's voice reached the second floor. I expected the hamburger shop's husband to come yelling any moment, but his voice never came. Nor did the elderly lady's. After a moment of thought, I remembered. That's right, both the elderly couple were at the hospital today, leaving Sarah alone in the shop. I hurried downstairs. A shabby-looking man was grabbing Sarah's arm, trying to drag her away. I immediately intervened. "Who the hell are you? Outsiders shouldn't butt in." "Outsider, that's rude," I said, handing him my business card. "I'm Jason, Sarah's fiancé," I introduced myself. Seeing my business card, her ex-husband's face turned pale. In the past few years, I had been recognized for my achievements and had become the executive vice president of the company. Moreover, my stepfather's company had grown significantly, now even appearing in TV commercials. "I've consulted our company's legal advisor about you. If you turn around now and never show up in front of us again, we can let this stalking incident slide." After I gently explained, the ex-husband grumbled and then ran off. Sarah was initially surprised to learn that her father had influenced her ex-husband's downfall in the industry. She had thought it was her father who hadn't allowed her to return home. However, due to the recent stalking incident by her ex-husband, Sarah had an opportunity to talk with her family. There, she learned that it was her stepmother who had refused to let her return home. The stepmother had made this decision on her own and reported it to Sarah's father in a way that suited her. I apologized to Sarah for pretending to be her fiancé to get rid of her ex-husband. It actually helped. I knew you were just trying to defuse the situation, she said, smiling brightly like she used to in our student days. Seeing that smile, I decided and took Sarah's hand. I want to be your fiancé for real. I've liked you since middle school. I want to be with you, with marriage in mind. I confessed right in front of the hamburger shop. Our wedding day was blessed with clear skies. The only guests were my parents, Sarah's father. Although it was a small ceremony attended only by the elderly couple who run the hamburger shop, it was a lovely occasion filled with smiles throughout. During the ceremony, Sarah and her father had a moment to talk alone, seemingly resolving their past conflicts. Her father was unaware of the stepmother's cold treatment towards Sarah. Upon learning the truth, he immediately made a phone call. I'm sorry for all the hardship you've endured for so long. I can't divorce her, but I will leave that house and live separately. I'm sorry for making you feel lonely. Saying this, Sarah's father apologized to her, tears welling up in his eyes. Sarah was surprised to see her father's tears for the first time. Men cry to, praise him for realizing his mistake, Sarah, the hamburger shop owner said, concluding the ceremony. My mother and stepfather continue to have a great relationship. I want to build a family using these two as a role model. Living happily ever after with Sarah is my ideal. To live happily together, creating our own intimate memories. What a bright and beautiful future it seems. Maybe when we're older, we can run a hamburger shop like that elderly couple. I'll have Sarah draw pictures on the wrappers. I'm sure it will be popular. I smiled, looking at my wife in her simple yet elegantly lined wedding dress. Who would have thought a small hamburger shop in a shopping street would bring such a profound connection with Sarah? Suddenly, my wife's profile overlapped with the one I used to secretly admire in middle school. When I mentioned this to her, she said, "Actually, back then, I secretly drew you." As she smiled shyly, I felt an overwhelming love for her and wished for our happiness to last forever. Well, Jennifer, as beautiful as ever, are you here for a business negotiation with your subordinate today? As we were walking down the hallway of our client's office, an elite manager named Alex approached us. Thank you for your support. That's right. It seems the only job he can do is carrying bags. Haha. My boss, to whom I replied, is named Jennifer. She's 3 years older and has been teaching me everything about the job since I joined the company. My name is Chris. After graduating from college, I joined a medical device manufacturing company and have been in sales for 2 years. Today, we came to negotiate with a client who is a wholesaler of medical devices, but we always seem to run into Alex. What a pathetic man. Whipped by a woman. You lack spirit, man. Come on. He said this as he passed by, patting me on the back. As I was caught off guard and choking, Jennifer said, "Hey, that kind of attitude is not acceptable." Jennifer approached Alex with a firm attitude. Pathetic. You're too lenient." He said this and walked away. "Chris, are you okay? That guy really takes me official. I want to get back at him someday, but he seems pretty competent. Maybe that's why he acts that way, but it's still unacceptable." Jennifer said this, showing her concern for me. "I'm fine. I'll work hard to become competent and prove him wrong." I was serious about this. Thanks to Jennifer's smooth talking, our meeting went well, and we got the client's approval for the contract, all the way up to the manager's decision. We took the contract to Alex and explained it to him, but he tore it up, crumpled it, and said, "This is too expensive. I can't sign this." Cut it by 15%, and then threw it in the trash. Stunned, we were about to leave when he said, "How long do you plan to stand there?" Go back and figure out how to reduce it by 15% or I'll buy from someone else." Jennifer was clenching her fists in anger. "Let's go back, Jennifer. I'll prepare the documents." Saying this, we got up, apologized to Alex, and decided to leave. And as we were walking down the hallway, suddenly, "Anyone, call an ambulance, please." We looked at each other and ran towards the voice. Opening the door, we found Alex lying face down, seemingly unconscious. "Jennifer, please call an ambulance. I'll administer first aid." As I said this, Jennifer tried to call 911 but was too flustered to dial correctly. "What should I do, Chris? I can't press the buttons properly." With a trembling voice, she said, and I replied, "I'll count for you. Just calm down. 911. She managed to dial 911 following my instructions. Meanwhile, I called out to Alex, but there was no response. I checked his wrist for a pulse but couldn't feel any. Turning Alex onto his back, I checked for breathing, but he wasn't breathing. I started CPR and rescue breathing, but Alex still didn't revive, so I shouted, "Someone, bring a defibrillator." A stunned employee snapped out of it and went to get the defibrillator. Another employee brought it quickly and handed it to me. I prepared it and said, "I'm using the defibrillator. Please step back." When I used it, Alex's body jerked. I put my ear to his chest to check if his heart had started, and I could hear it beating. Jennifer, now a bit calmer, was informing the fire department of the client's company name and address. "What should we do about Alex's condition?" they're asking. Hearing this, I took the phone and explained Alex's situation. Jennifer seemed surprised by my quick response to the patient. After confirming that Alex's pulse had stabilized, I said, "For now, he seems to be okay. If you know whether Alex has any chronic conditions or regularly takes any medication, please let us know." When I asked his subordinate, they said Alex was on medication for high blood pressure. Seeing how I handled the situation with ease, Jennifer approached me and asked, "Who are you? You seem experienced with life-saving and using a defibrillator." Before she could finish, the paramedics arrived, so I decided to explain the situation to them and left. Jennifer seemed upset that I didn't answer her question and was distant in the car on the way back, not responding to any of my attempts to start a conversation. Having no choice, I decided to share my story with Jennifer. "Jennifer, can I tell you about myself? Actually, I graduated from medical school before joining our company. My family has a long line of doctors, and my father runs his own practice in our hometown. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and my mother is a dermatologist. My brother and sister are also doctors, working in a university hospital." Really? Does such a family actually exist? I wish it didn't. I topped my class in medical school but failed the medical licensing exam. I took the surgical exam but failed. My father was furious, calling me a disgrace and saying I had brought shame to the family. My mother tried to defend me, but it got too uncomfortable at home, so I left. I gave up on becoming a doctor. I never really wanted to be one anyway. That's quite a story, but if you wanted to avoid medicine entirely, why choose to work at our company, a medical device manufacturer? I was cornered by her question and struggled to respond, but she followed up, saying, "If you still want to be a doctor, why not give it another shot? You don't have to practice medicine just because you have a license. You could get your license and still work here." She said this to reassure me. "Jennifer, you're kind. Thank you, but it's not so easy to pass the medical exam while working. I've accepted this as my fate." I tried to sound calm, but what Jennifer said stuck with me, and I started to consider retaking the medical exam. Back at the company, everyone already knew about Alex's collapse and that I had resuscitated him. I heard that the president of the client company had called to thank me occasionally. I was informed that Alex needed a detailed examination but was currently stable. I lied to my colleagues, saying I knew how to use a defibrillator because my family were doctors, and asked Jennifer to keep my medical school background a secret. I got careless, and someone from HR ended up revealing my educational background, so it eventually got out. Some colleagues curiously asked me why I joined this company, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them what I had told Jennifer, so I just laughed it off. For a while, I became a topic of conversation at work, but after a month, nobody mentioned it anymore. Just when I thought I could finally concentrate on my work, I received a call from the client company. Surprisingly, it was Alex. "Hello, is this Chris? Thank you for saving my life the other day. Thanks to your quick decision, I can come back to work safely. I'd like to visit you soon to express my gratitude in person. When would be a good time?" Startled, I said, "Oh, you don't need to do that. Let me check with my supervisor." "I need to speak with you, not your supervisor. Is there a problem with me visiting?" "No, not at all. Please hold for a moment." I put the phone on hold and told my manager, Mike, that Alex wanted to visit to thank me. "Really? That's great. Let's take him on a factory tour and show our products. Chris, make sure to guide him when he visits." He said this, putting more pressure on me. Resigned, I picked up the phone again and said, "Thank you for waiting. We look forward to welcoming you to our office. Please let us know a date and time that works for you." "Thank you. I wouldn't want to intrude suddenly, so how about in a week? I'm looking forward to meeting you," he said and ended the call. I sighed deeply and went to Mike for instructions on the visit. "I'm leaving it up to you. You're Alex's lifesaver, so even if there are minor mistakes, he'll probably overlook them. Just memorize our product catalog. That should be easy for a med school grad." He ended with a sarcastic remark, so I decided not to say anything more to him. From then on, I spent my days preparing explanatory materials and learning about our products and catalogs at the showroom. As I familiarized myself with our products, I noticed differences from the medical instruments I used in med school. Understanding both the good and bad aspects, I suggested improvements to the product development team, and they said, "Thank you for the great suggestions. Could you also look at our other products? Your opinion is valuable since we don't get much feedback from doctors. If you have any cost-saving ideas, let us know." I never expected Alex's visit to lead to all this, but I found it interesting and continued to propose improvements to the development team. After finishing the materials for the product presentation and preparing the tour route, ensuring everything was in order for the day, it finally arrived. On the day, President Johnson and the executives were waiting at the company entrance for Alex's visit. As I met each executive, they said, "Chris, we're counting on you today. Make sure to promote our products well." Feeling the pressure, I saw the car carrying Alex pull up to the entrance. The driver opened the rear door, and Alex, using a cane, stepped out. "Thank you all for welcoming me. Is Chris here? He saved my life, allowing me to return to work safely. I have some after effects, but thank you very much." He said this. As President Johnson and the executives introduced themselves one by one, I thought standing for a long time might be hard for Alex, so I said, "Alex, it's been a while. Please, let me take you to the reception room." "Chris, you're thoughtful. Thank you." Alex smiled and gently patted my back, encouraging me to head with him to the reception room. Leading the way, Alex and I walked ahead while President Johnson and the executives followed. Then, Alex whispered with a laugh, "Don't your company's big shots know how to host guests?" Hearing that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing and simply replied, "I apologize." Since Alex was using a cane, I thought it would be best to cancel the factory tour and conveyed this to President Johnson, who agreed. In the reception room, a cheerful Alex, almost unrecognizable from before, apologized in front of President Johnson for tearing up the contract on the day he collapsed. I was feeling extremely unwell and irritable that day, and I acted inappropriately. I apologize for my behavior. However, as much as I respect a company that employs my lifesaver, I cannot approve the contract at that price due to my position. I cannot mix personal matters with business. Please, let's work towards a mutually agreeable contract," he said. I explained to Alex that I had conveyed the improvement ideas I thought of while preparing a product presentation to the development team, and that cost reductions were expected. Then, let's have a presentation when the product is ready, Alex said before leaving. As his car disappeared from view, President Johnson, the executives, and I all let out sighs of relief. After explaining my discussion with the development team to President Johnson, I was granted the afternoon off as a reward. Back at my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about Alex using a cane. I felt responsible, wondering if my first aid had caused his condition. Unable to ask Alex directly, I spent the day restless. The next morning, still preoccupied, I decided to research potential after effects based on Alex's symptoms and medication. Immersed in medical books, I rediscovered the passion I had when I aimed to be a doctor. Though I thought I didn't want to be a doctor, I realized my true feelings at that moment. The desire to save lives as a doctor grew stronger, and even during work, I fought about it until Jennifer invited me to dinner. "You did a great job handling Alex's visit. Let's have a small celebration. How about going out for drinks this Friday night?" she suggested. I was relieved to realize that my concerns hadn't been as obvious as I thought. Come to think of it, it's been a while since I went out for drinks with Jennifer. I remember getting scolded a lot about work in the past. This time, it seems there won't be any reprimanding, so it looks like I'll finally enjoy some good drinks. With that thought, I looked forward to Friday. Finally, Friday came, and after work, I headed to the bar where Jennifer was already waiting. "Oops, sorry, did I keep you waiting?" As I hurriedly took my seat, Jennifer said, "I arrived just about 5 minutes ago, so I haven't been waiting. I'm quite thirsty. Shall we order some drinks first?" We ordered beers and talked about the day Alex collapsed. That time was really shocking. I was so angry at how Alex was treating you before he collapsed. I wanted to knock some sense into him. And then he just fell over. It made me feel somewhat responsible. It's strange. In such moments, even calling an ambulance properly seems impossible. I felt so helpless. Jennifer looked a bit downcast as she said this. "It's unnerving, isn't it? Despite his age, Alex maintained his physique and seemed to take good care of his health. It didn't appear like he had any chronic illnesses. To be honest, I've always found Alex a bit difficult, but during his last visit, he was surprisingly cheerful. Seeing him walk with a cane made me feel sorry for him. I've been wondering if my emergency treatment caused his condition." As I shared my concerns, Jennifer encouraged me. "What are you talking about? To be able to do what you did in that situation is incredible. Just because you graduated from medical school doesn't mean you're a doctor, so you don't need to feel that responsible. You did really well despite how badly he treated you." Jennifer continued, "Hey, Chris, this might be none of my business, but have you thought about pursuing a career as a doctor again? Becoming a doctor is a calling. Not everyone can save lives like you did. Forget about what your parents think. It's irrelevant." As Jennifer looked at me earnestly, I decided to be honest about my feelings. "Actually, I've been researching why Alex started using a cane. I'm worried that my first aid was inadequate. While researching, I realized that I do want to become a doctor. I'm just wondering if my curiosity about Alex's cane is the only reason." After listening to my story, Jennifer grinned and said, "I knew it," with a knowing smile. "Recently, you've been deep in thought a lot and sighing heavily. I was wondering what was going on. And it turns out you were worrying about all this, huh?" She said this with a chuckle. "Was it that obvious? I tried to act normal around you. Was this invitation a day specifically for this reason?" Jennifer laughed. "Spot on. I knew something was bothering you. You're quite transparent, you know. I even saw you researching medical conditions on your computer during lunch. Is there a reason you're hesitating?" I explained, "When I was a student, I had time to prepare for the medical exams, but now, working full-time, I have less time to study. I haven't saved enough to take a year off for study, and I don't want to quit a job I like." Jennifer responded, "It's fine if you won't regret it in a few years, but you can't live in doubt forever. If you fail again, then you can give up for good. So why not try and cut through the uncertainty? Now might be an easier time to pass. I knew Jennifer was right, but studying while working seemed daunting. When I explained this to Jennifer, she offered, "If you're serious about becoming a doctor, why don't you come live with me? I'm at work on weekdays. I can cook dinner, and I have enough savings to support you for about a year. I can lend you money, too. Living alone, you'd have to cook, which is a waste of precious time. If you work hard, even if you don't succeed, you'll be able to move on without regrets." I was stunned by her unexpected offer and didn't know what to say. But her sincere concern for me was heartwarming. "Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate your serious consideration of my situation. I'll think about it over the weekend. Of course, I'm leaning towards taking the exam. I need to assess my current knowledge, figure out how to make time for study, and consider how to balance it with work." Smart people do that, don't they? Think carefully and decide. I'm not that smart, so I just go for it. Instead of wasting time overthinking, why not dedicate that time to studying? If there's a will, there's a way. Her words resonated with me, and she added, "I don't like talking about it, but I've given up on many things in life. That's what I don't want others to give up. Chris, you still have a chance. If you want to do it, you should. If you give it your all and it doesn't work out, then you can let go. It seems like a part of you still believes you can do it." Encouraged by Jennifer's support, I resolved, I'll try. I'll study while working for a month, and if it doesn't work, I'll look for other ways. I might inconvenience you at work, but I have to do this. Interrupting me midway through my explanation, Jennifer jokingly said, "You're always like that, aren't you? What's new about it? I'll support you in your work and meals, so start preparing for the medical exam. First things first, I'm going to your apartment now. I need to know where it is to bring you dinner." Again, she surprised me with something unexpected. "No, that's all right for dinner. There's a convenience store and a diner nearby. If you want, you can bring dinner to the office." I try my best to politely decline her offer to come to my apartment. Is it such a hassle to have me come over? I'm quite good at cooking and doing household chores, you know. But if it's going to be a distraction from your studies, then I won't come. Just know that if you're serious about this, I'm willing to help that much. Knowing there's someone to support you can be a big motivation. Seeing Jennifer looking a bit sad, as if disappointed that I wasn't relying on her, I quickly reassured her, "Please, don't be down. I'm just really surprised and grateful to meet someone who thinks so deeply about helping me. It's truly a blessing to have someone like you encouraging me. There's a limit to how much one can push themselves alone. But knowing that you care so much makes me want to work even harder. I will definitely turn to you when I need help. Jennifer, I can't thank you enough." That's what I told Jennifer, expressing my sincere appreciation. "Can I have your apartment address then?" Jennifer asked, holding out a notebook and pen. After writing my address in Jennifer's notebook, she remarked, "Oh, you live quite close to me. It's surprising that we've never crossed paths during commute hours." Learning where Jennifer lived, I realized it was only about a 15-minute bike ride from my place. "I live near a bus stop and usually commute by bus," I explained. "You would take the train from your place, right? Maybe that's why our paths never crossed. But there's a supermarket located halfway between our places, so we might have bumped into each other while shopping." Pointing out the supermarket on her phone's map, she said, "I go there often for groceries since I cook myself. The freshness and prices are unbeatable. I go there for the 30% off deli items." After chatting about local spots, we decided to head home. Since we were going in the same direction, we shared a taxi, and Jennifer got off first at her place. In the taxi, Jennifer reminded me to start studying from the next day. When I returned to my apartment, I started tidying up to create an environment conducive to studying and rearranged the room's layout. After preparing for bed, I planned to start studying as soon as I woke up the next day. With these thoughts in mind, I drifted off to sleep. I was awakened by the doorbell in the morning. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I checked the time. It was just past 9 a.m. Thinking it might be the neighbor's doorbell, it rang again. I hurried to the door and opened it to find Jennifer standing there with a packed lunch. Inviting her in, she teased, "Were you still sleeping? Got motivation, Chris? Oh, your place is nicely tidied up. I cleaned up and rearranged last night to prepare for studying. Would you like some coffee? I can make tea too." "No need, I'll do it. I've brought breakfast too, so let's eat together. They say a good breakfast improves brain function, but you probably know that better." As Jennifer boiled water, she opened the meal box. The beautifully arranged meal inside was a clear indication of her culinary skills, just as she had mentioned. After we finished our breakfast together, Jennifer began to clean up the dishes used for the meal. I expressed my gratitude to Jennifer and informed her that I was going to start studying. Jennifer then said, "I don't want to disturb you, so I'll leave soon. I'll come back for the lunchbox later." "If you don't have any plans for the rest of the day, Jennifer, you're welcome to stay here. I can't offer much in terms of hospitality though." Responding to my offer, Jennifer happily said, "Really? That's great. It's too hot to go back and forth outside. I'll just sit quietly and read a book. Do you have any that I could read?" I recommended a book and handed it to her. Surprised, she said, "Oh, I was about to buy this book. I like this author. Do you have any more books by them?" "Yes, I have more. I've been a fan since the author debuted. Feel free to choose any from here," I said, pointing to my bookshelf, before sitting down at my desk to study. Jennifer sat on the sofa reading, but soon she seemed to have fallen asleep. I guessed she must have woken up early to prepare the lunch, and I continued studying, grateful for her support. As lunchtime passed and I started feeling hungry, Jennifer suddenly woke up. "Oh no, I fell asleep. It's past lunchtime. I'll get everything ready. Just wait a moment," she said, starting to prepare lunch. "I really appreciate you making lunch so early. I was able to concentrate on my studies because of your help. Thank you." "Don't mention it. Take a break. It will be ready soon," she replied, finishing up the lunch preparation, and we ate together. "Are you okay with staying here for the afternoon as well?" In response to her question, I said, "I'm completely fine with it. How about we go to my favorite diner for dinner?" This was the first time I had ever invited Jennifer out for a meal. "Yes, I was actually curious about it. Let's go, but I'll leave the timing to you. Keep up the good work until then." I managed to focus on my studies throughout the afternoon, and at 3 p.m., Jennifer prepared coffee and sweets, allowing for a well-timed break that helped maintain my concentration and efficiency. I remembered how, during my student days, I used to push myself hard and study desperately, but often found that the information didn't stick, leaving me feeling anxious. Feeling more optimistic with my current approach, I thought I could manage it this time. However, knowing I had just started, I resolved not to let my guard down. For dinner, we went to my favorite diner. While eating, I expressed my gratitude to Jennifer. "Thank you for everything today. Thanks to you, I was able to study efficiently. It feels like I'm making more progress than during my student years." "Oh, I'm glad. I just ended up sleeping when I came over. Sorry about that. I won't come tomorrow to avoid disturbing you, so you can focus on your studies." Feeling grateful for her support, I said, "Your visit today was actually quite pleasant, and we discovered we have similar tastes in books. I didn't feel uncomfortable even in silence. If you're okay with it, please feel free to visit anytime. Cooking meals might be a hassle for you, so you can cook at my place if you like. I'll even cover the food expenses." "Are you asking me out?" Startled by her comment, I quickly responded, "No, that's not what I meant." "Well, maybe, but now's not the time to think about that." I felt flustered by her playful remark. Jennifer laughed it off. "Don't worry about it. If it's not a bother, that's fine with me," she answered with a light-hearted tone, acknowledging my flustered response. After that conversation, we parted ways at the diner, and I watched her leave before heading back to my apartment. I studied until I fell asleep, and before I knew it, the night had turned to morning. Although Jennifer didn't come over on Sunday, during the weekdays, she supported me by bringing packed lunches. I couldn't study during the day due to work, but Jennifer took over all my overtime, allowing me to focus on studying when I got home. This routine continued for 2 months, and I began to adapt to this new rhythm, feeling my studies progress. Trying some past exam papers, I scored close to the passing mark. I consistently achieved stable scores even on other past exam questions. Although these scores didn't match my student days, I felt a sense of joy and accomplishment. The fact that I could achieve steady scores in a different environment from the relentless struggle of my student years was a significant achievement. I shared this progress and my happiness with Jennifer. I'm doing better now than in my student days, though the scores are a bit lower, but I think I can make it through the medical exam in another half year, I told her. Jennifer responded, "That's great to hear. If I'm helping, then that's good." I reminisced about the first time you brought lunch to my apartment and how you fell asleep from exhaustion. When I feel overwhelmed by studying, I remember her sleeping, and it motivates me. It's good to have someone to work hard for. That's what I conveyed to her. From then on, she came over once a week to cook and support me. Whenever I felt like giving up, recalling her dedication helped me push through. 2 weeks before the exam, I decided to use all my remaining leave for the final push. By then, my intention to take the medical exam had become known at work, and even my boss, Mike, was understanding. Though Jennifer didn't take leave, she supported me by cooking dinner on weekdays and staying over on weekend. Finally, I passed the medical exam. Without hesitation, I called Jennifer to share the news. She was tearful on the phone, so after expressing my gratitude, I invited her out for dinner. The next day, the product development team informed us that the improved product was ready. Jennifer and I prepared the materials and set off to present them to Alex. When we visited the client, we were led directly to Alex. Together with Jennifer, I explained the product improvements and the cost reductions, asking for feedback. The person in charge agreed to the contract, and Alex also approved it, allowing us to finalize the deal. "Please convey my appreciation for the hard work and development," said Alex. "Maybe it's because of Chris's advice. I noticed he seems different since the last time we met, more confident. Did something happen?" Jennifer and I exchanged glances, and she encouraged me. "Chris, why don't you tell him?" I decided to share the story from when Alex collapsed. I talked about my decision to pursue medicine again, my successful medical exam, and how Jennifer had been a dedicated supporter throughout the journey. Hearing this, Alex said, "I see. I didn't mean to cause you worry. The cane was due to a back injury, unrelated to that incident. The emergency crew told me your first aid was perfect. Without you, I might not be alive. You should be confident in yourself." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders upon hearing this. "You two looked like a perfect couple from the start. Finally got together, huh?" Alex teased us. "So, what's your plan for the future? Are you going to leave the company and become a doctor?" Faced with this question, I decided to discuss my future plans, even though I hadn't yet spoken to Jennifer about them. "I've decided to become a doctor. I have the desire to help sick people, and it's also a way to repay Jennifer for her support." Jennifer nodded in agreement. "That's good to hear. Jennifer will miss you at the company though." Jennifer quickly replied, "Mind your own business. It's his life, and I support whatever he decides. Chris, become a great doctor and fix Alex's attitude." Suddenly, the staff member standing next to Alex burst into laughter. Caught up in the moment, we all joined in, sharing a lighthearted laugh together. After receiving the contract, we left the client's office to head back to our company. In the car, I spoke with Jennifer. "I'm sorry I decided to become a doctor without telling you first. I had planned to discuss it with you sooner." "It's okay. It's your decision, and as long as you don't regret it, that's all that matters to me." Thank you, but there's one more thing I need to say, or I might regret it. Would you consider dating with me? With the marriage and spending our lives together in mind. Jennifer seemed utterly surprised, probably not having anticipated this at all. Jennifer, clearly surprised, eventually said, "Yes, I will. Guess I should start planning my resignation. Wonder who will do the sales if we both leave." 3 years have passed since we got married, and my wife is still working hard in sales. Every day, I face my patients with gratitude, remembering how Alex's collapse became the catalyst for where I am now.